They didn't need wings to dominate the planet, only time to disappear. From silent hunters to feathered titans, the giant flightless birds once ruled the Earth. The real question is, how many are still out there? The northern regions of our planet were once home to true giant flightless birds, majestic creatures that looked like modern dinosaurs. Today, their traces rest in fossils buried under centuries of silence. Europe, for instance, once hosted the so-called giant ostrich, a colossal bird that could weigh over 1,000 pounds, nearly twice the size of the modern ostrich. These birds couldn't fly, but they ruled over frozen plains, as if the sky was never needed. But as continents evolved, something broke the cycle of the evolution of birds in the north. The Great Auk, the tragic symbol of that era, was pushed into extinction by human greed and relentless hunting. It was small compared to the giants of the past, but it carried the last spark of an ancient lineage. When the final pair vanished, it wasn't just another extinct bird species that disappeared. It was a piece of natural history erased by human haste. And before the cold took over, there were still predator flightless birds, the so-called terror birds that roamed North America long before the rise of large mammals. Agile creatures armed with blade-shaped beaks and legs of steel, they embodied the ancestral power of the modern dinosaurs. Today, only their fossilized footprints remain, echoes of an empire of feathers and bones. But while the North fell silent, the South never forgot how to build giants. When the modern dinosaurs vanished, the Americas weren't left without predators. Instead, the giant flightless birds known as terror birds emerged, true hunting machines that stood nearly 10 feet tall. Their legs, as powerful as coiled springs, launched lightning-fast and deadly attacks. Imagine facing a 700-pound animal that couldn't fly but could sprint at nearly 40 miles per hour. No prey ever escaped the swing of its axe-shaped beak. These predators ruled the continent for millions of years, proving that the evolution of birds wasn't just about flight. It was about adaptation and dominance on solid ground. Fossils reveal razor-sharp claws and skulls built to crush bone, reminders that the modern dinosaurs never truly left. They simply adapted beneath feathers and instinct. Even with the rise of large mammals, the terror birds held their throne for a surprisingly long time. Today, their descendants appear harmless rhyas, ostriches, cassowaries, yet their legacy is still visible. Bone structure, sharp gaze, territorial behavior, everything hints at their ancient power. Some say that meeting a cassowary in the wild is the closest you can get to a cassowary attack straight out of the Jurassic. They may have vanished, yes, but their lineage never did. And if the Americas once had predators like these, what about the birds that struggled to survive alone in a single lake? In the heart of Guatemala, surrounded by misty mountains, lived one of the last forgotten gems of the evolution of birds, the Atitlan grebe. It wasn't one of the giant flightless birds, but it shared the same tragic fate as many extinct bird species. Isolated within a volcanic lake, it thrived for centuries without predators until humans brought change. Invasive species, deforestation, and water imbalance were enough to erase an entire lineage in just a few decades. The Atitlan grebe was small, but its absence echoes as a reminder that extinction doesn't always come from catastrophe. Sometimes it's the result of one bad decision. When the lake's ecosystem was altered, foreign fish devoured its chicks and its prey vanished. Nature, once its guardian, became the stage of its downfall. It's a quiet portrait of a world that still hasn't learned to respect its own miracles. Think about it. If a single lake can erase a species, what could an entire ocean of change do to the birds that remain? Every time we look at a penguin, a rhea, or a cassowary, we're witnessing the last living chapters of a long story. If the North lost its voice, can the South still teach us how to keep the memory of the giants alive? While the North faded into silence, the South kept the legacy of the giant flightless birds alive. From Patagonia to Ecuador, the continent became a living museum of the evolution of birds. Rheas sprint across open fields at 35 miles per hour, proving that power doesn't always need wings. Meanwhile, the flightless cormorant and Galapagos penguin form an unlikely duo. One swims where the other dives, both embodying nature's balance. South America is, by definition, the land of diversity. Here, flightless birds coexist with species that migrated from ice and fire alike. The Humboldt, Magellanic, and king penguins share cold currents with dolphins and seals. It's a continent where every ecosystem has a role, as if Earth itself conducted an evolutionary experiment here. Even today, each island and peninsula reveals new insights into resilience and life's creativity. And perhaps the most fascinating part, even the smallest of these penguins command respect greater than that of the predators of old. It's a lesson only time can teach. Physical size may shrink, but legacy endures. And if these small survivors already impress, imagine what happens when the throne of the South is taken by a true king. Among cutting winds and towering ice mountains, the king penguin stands as a majestic reminder that the evolution of birds still writes chapters of grandeur. Weighing around 40 pounds and diving nearly 1,000 feet, it represents the peak of the flightless birds, in colonies that resemble living cities. Thousands gather on desolate shores, an empire of feathers choreographed by instinct and order. These penguins don't just survive, they rule. Their chicks, wrapped in brown down, look like the royal guards of a polar kingdom. On the horizon, orcas prowl like rival powers, proving that even kings face worthy enemies. Yet, amid such harshness, the king penguin keeps its grace, a silent lesson on the balance between vulnerability and strength. But even kings cannot control the climate that sustains their throne. Warming waters shift migration routes, reduce fish stocks, and threaten their colonies. Each hotter summer shrinks the empire a little more. And if even the sovereigns of the South must bow to change, what can be said of those who live where cold never fades, on the icy throne ruled by the true emperor? At the end of the world, where wind cuts like a blade and ice sings with cracks, live the true monarchs of the cold, the Adelie and the Emperor Penguin. They mark the ultimate frontier of the evolution of birds, beings shaped to endure where nothing else survives. The Emperor Penguin, largest of all flightless birds, dives more than 1,800 feet and stays underwater for over 30 minutes, hunting in the dark abyss. Its strength lies not in size, but in endurance. Each colony is a monument to cooperation. Parents take turns guarding the eggs, braving 120-mile-per-hour winds and temperatures below -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Bodies huddle, instincts guide, and life endures even when the sun disappears for months. It's proof that the modern dinosaurs didn't need fire to conquer eternity, only discipline and unity. But now, the ice that built their empire is melting. Glaciers collapse, colonies shrink, and what was once home turns into abyss. If the ice that shaped their kingdoms fails to return, what will remain of these giants of the cold? And when the throne of ice dissolves, who will be the next guardian of the flightless birds on a changing planet? In the humid jungles of Southeast Asia, silence is an illusion. Between giant ferns and roots that swallow stones walks a survivor from the age of modern. Dinosaurs, the southern cassowary. Weighing 187 pounds and armed with dagger-like claws, it's living proof that not all flightless birds are peaceful. Locals call it the bird that can send you to the hospital, and it's no exaggeration. A cassowary attack can strike as fast as lightning. Yet behind the fearsome appearance lies balance. The cassowary keeps the rainforest alive by spreading the seeds of toxic fruits that no other animal dares to eat. It's the secret gardener of the jungle, vital to the evolution of birds and even the plants themselves. Without it, many species would vanish, a reminder that even the most dangerous creatures have indispensable roles. Its greatest threat, however, isn't predators, it's us. Roads, farms, and curious tourists are pushing it out of its habitat. When it attacks, it's almost always out of fear, not aggression. The irony is hard to ignore. We say the dinosaurs are extinct, but they simply moved, waiting quietly in Asia's damp heart. But if here the danger comes from instinct, the next continent turned evolution itself into a laboratory. Nowhere else on Earth has the evolution of birds been as inventive as in Oceania. Here, flightless birds broke nature's rules, turning isolation into advantage. Take the kakapo, for instance, a parrot that forgot how to fly. It lives as a shy nocturnal monk, an endearing symbol of a lineage that followed its own script. Each island seems to test a new evolutionary idea, as if the whole continent were a living lab. But perhaps the most inspiring story is that of the Takahe, declared extinct for nearly 50 years. It was rediscovered in a remote New Zealand valley, proof that not all extinct bird species are truly gone. Its return united entire communities, showing that conservation isn't just science, it's hope. In a world obsessed with loss, watching a bird come back from extinction is a powerful reminder that the impossible sometimes happens. And then there's the kiwi, small, shy, yet carrying the DNA of ancient titans like Madagascar's elephant bird. It's the invisible thread connecting the past of the giant flightless birds to the present. A national symbol that walks quietly but carries a story that screams. In Oceania, even parrots forget to fly, and even losses find ways to be reborn. But while these islands teach rebirth, the neighboring continent, vast, dry, and unyielding, tells a story of endurance. Australia is the empire where giant flightless birds still reign. Under the blazing sun and cracked earth, emus sprint at nearly 30 miles per hour, proving that the evolution of birds doesn't need wings to achieve greatness. Weighing up to 130 pounds with heat-reflective feathers, they are portraits of extreme adaptation. And the most fascinating part, no human war ever defeated them. Not even the infamous Emu War of 1932, when the Australian Army lost to a flock of birds. But emus aren't the only guardians of this realm. Along the coasts, the little penguin patrols the chilly nights, protecting its nest with the help of human volunteers, a rare alliance showing how coexistence is possible when respect prevails. In a continent of extremes, where wildfires and droughts push life to its limits, these birds endure, proving that resilience is the true secret of the flightless birds. What makes Australia unique is this mix of strength and fragility. Here, every ostrich versus emu isn't a contest of size, but of philosophy. Adaptability wins. And when the desert falls silent, the emu's footprints whisper something the modern world has forgotten. Sometimes to endure is the greatest act of power. But what about the places where power was never lost, where giants still walk as if time itself has stood still? Across Africa's golden savannas, time seems to have stopped, and with it, the greatest flightless birds still roam. The common and Somali ostriches are living titans, weighing up to 350 pounds and running over 45 miles per hour. It's as if the evolution of birds decided to preserve a piece of the modern dinosaurs right here. Their kicks are lethal. Their eyesight spans miles, and their presence turns any plain into an arena of survival. These birds don't just endure, they command respect. While other animals hide from drought, ostriches face it head-on. They feed on what the desert rejects, and when threatened, strike with surgical precision. They're living lessons in power, silent, poised, and eternal. And when they're young, sprint between giraffes and zebras, you can't help but see the last giants nature refuse to abandon. There's something symbolic in that contrast. In a world that has lost so many extinct bird species, Africa still keeps its titans. They're the living answer to the question driving this entire journey. What if the giants never truly disappeared, but simply learned to run faster? What if the future of the flightless birds depends on this ancient strength still thriving beneath the African sun? From Asia's tropical jungles to Antarctica's eternal ice, all flightless birds tell the same story, a struggle between fragility and persistence. They are the last living chapters of the modern dinosaurs, survivors of extinctions, ice ages, and human expansion. But now, they face a different kind of enemy, silent, global, relentless. Climate change. Each additional degree of heat is a torn page from the book of the evolution of birds. Today, the danger doesn't come from predators, but from us. Habitat destruction, invasive species, and urban expansion are pushing these birds toward the same fate as the Great Auk and Atitlan grebe. Recent studies show even emus and penguins are changing their migration patterns to escape heat and starvation. It's a reminder that extinction doesn't happen overnight. It builds up quietly until silence takes over. And yet, there's still hope. Conservation projects, sanctuaries, and genetic research are working to protect what remains and maybe even reverse what's been lost. After all, if these creatures survive meteors and ice ages, perhaps they can survive us too. But one question remains. The giant flightless birds endured time itself. Will they endure humanity's haste? Maybe we didn't hunt them this time, but we're still pushing them toward silence. The giant flightless birds survived ice ages, predators, and isolation, yet they may not survive us. If their stories disappear, so will the proof that evolution's greatest marvels once walked this planet. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next giant might already be fading while no one's watching.